Yeah, yeah, yeah. There is nothing better than being introduced by like a classic love song. Come on. Good morning. Sweet. Welcome to church. Is that weird? This is sort of normal to have happen. But cool, man. My name's Dane Cockle. It's a pleasure to have you guys here with us. You're at Church of the Four Corners if you didn't know where you were at this morning. But this is home. And I hope you feel that is that way for many of you. If this is your first time, man, thank you for being here. We hope that this place is, like I said, home, a new experience, a fresh place for you to be. My wife, Lizzie, and I have been at the church probably for 3 or 4 years now, it seems like. We got 2 beautiful little girls. Their name's Finley and Spencer. We have 6 months. She is like a chubby monkey. I love her to death. And man, my wife and I lead the small group young adult ministry here at our church. And my parents have actually started attending our church, Dan and Pam. So if you've got like a little bitty runt back in the kids area, you might know them. They're super cool people. I don't even know if they're here this morning. I love them to death. I love having them here at our church. A little bit else about me. I love the Royals more than the average Joe. Come on. And when I said that first service, there were like 3 people, legitimately 3 people that clapped. And we've lost 2015. It's just forgotten. The bandwagon fans are gone, you punks. And I have believed in Patrick Mahomes before it was cool, okay? Humble brag at that point. Come on, thankful for him. That's just a little bit about me, man. But again, I'm really thankful for you to be here. And I want to speak to those. The thing is, this church has meant a lot to Lizzie and I. I have found more hope in the friendships that I have. Like, I literally hang out with people on Friday night, the same people I go to church with on Sunday morning, and it's never been the case for us. And it just feels so real and authentic, challenging me to be a better husband, a better friend. And my hope is for you, if you've been sort of on the fringe about this place, or maybe this, like I said, this is your first time, I challenge you to dive in, to give this place a chance. It's unique. There's something special about the people that are here. And so for many of you, I just want to say thank you for making this place a really cool place for my family to be. So you have stepped into week 3 of this series we're calling Tainted Love. Come on. And this idea is about healthy marriage relationships. And today we're going to be talking about what happens when things aren't going as well as we want them to be, that there's trouble in paradise. But if you've missed the first couple of weeks that Craig's been given, I just encourage you to go to the website. They're all up there online. They're incredible. And I would encourage you to take some time this week, maybe on your way to work, to listen to them. Definitely don't watch them on your way to work. That'd be stupid. But definitely take some time to check them out, okay? But I don't want to waste any time to jump into our service. So here's the idea. The big picture of not just this week, but the whole series is that what do we do to help the dreams that we have for our relationship become a reality? When at times we have like these inadequate habits to actually make the relationship that we all hope for. Like, we have to address the idea that if we want this sort of relationship, that this dream-like relationship, that we're going to have to probably address some things that are inadequate. So last week we left off chapter 4 in Song of Solomon. So I just want to get into that sultry book, and let's take a look. So chapter 5, you're going to find up here on the screen. Song of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 2. What you see here is that Solomon and his bride, and she has this killer name. Here it is. I just want to look to make sure I said it right. Shulamith. It's going to be a top 10 name 2019. Shulamith. And it's going to start here in Independence. I want you to know that. But his bride, it's him and his bride. She wakes up in this like dreamlike state. And that's what we're seeing here in this conversation. I slept and my heart was awake. She says, listen, my beloved is knocking, saying, open to me, my sister, my darling, my dove, my flawless one. Sweet stuff. My head is drenched with the dew, my hair with the dampness of the night. I have taken off my robe. Must I put it back on again? I have washed my feet. Must I soil them again? For real. My beloved thrust his hand through the latch opening in the door. My heart began to pound for him. I rose to open for my beloved, and my hands dripped with myrrh, my fingers with flowing myrrh on the handles of the bolt. Opened for my beloved, but my beloved had left. He was gone, and my heart sank at his departure. I looked for him, but I could not find him. I called for him, but he did not answer. I want to pray just to open us up. God, I thank you for this morning and every person in this room. A lot of people here this morning And no doubt there are folks in this place that need to hear the message that you have for them. I just ask that you would just speak through me, that there be something, some takeaway for couples in this room that find themselves in desperate places, that are worried or concerned or have lost hope that they can make it out of it. In a very real sense, I ask that you meet them here, that something would awaken in them as far as hope, as far as perseverance, that they would take responsibility for some things that they need to address personally, and they'd fight. They'd fight for a healthy marriage. They'd fight for intimacy. And maybe some of the things that we talk about today can help them on that journey. I just thank you for the opportunity to worship together in a really cool city, in an amazing country. God, we appreciate and we value the freedoms we have. And so thank you for being here with us today. May we have fun. May we be challenged and we walk away different. Amen. So in this passage, it's like this dreamlike state that she wakes up in, and very quickly the dream turns into a nightmare for her, okay? Solomon comes knocking at the door, but here's something to know, even before we get into it. There is no other spot in this entire book that's very much beautiful poetic language that he addresses his bride with more affection, which is kind of interesting. He says, my sister, my dove, my darling, my flawless one. And that is exactly how I woke up this morning. You know what I mean? Like I was like, babe, what's up? I don't never use that language, to be honest. I should. I love my wife. But he addresses her with such affection. So the idea is that their relationship couldn't be closer knit. But what I find super interesting is what scholars honestly believe is happening at this moment. Because they differ if they think this is honestly like a sexual advance, if he's like feeling it, and he's like, let's do this thing, or if it's really like he's legitimately locked out of the house. Like it is super funny. Having read like scholars who they have like devoted their lives to understanding the ancient sacred text, don't understand like what's truly happening here, right? But if we're honest, we probably would say both of these situations we've been in before, right? So what happens is every marriage in this room has major opportunities where miscommunication takes place. So whether it's like bedroom miscommunication, like he's feeling it and she's not, and then she's like, oh, no, never mind, I'm feeling it. And then he's like, bye, Felicia. He's gone. Like he's already left that moment, and that moment's been missed, or legitimately he's locked out of the house. Now, I'll be honest, I've never locked Lizzie out of the house, okay? Calm down. Jeez Louise, I've never done that. But I've definitely been in the moment where, and maybe you could relate, I'm nearly asleep. I'm like just already thinking about shooting hoops to LeBron James, or me and Patrick are throwing the football together, just hanging out. And I'm ready for bed, and my wife just taps my shoulder, and she's like, hey, baby, yeah? And for like a split second, I'm thinking, yes. Thank you, Jesus. And then the moment in a second, she goes, hey, I forgot the diapers in the car, and it's so cold out, and my robe is over here, and I've already cleaned everything, and my feet are just like, could you please go to the car? And just, they're going to freeze, and it's dangerous for the babies. Like, they need to be inside. And I immediately go, no, I'm not doing that. Like, right? Of course I said yes. I mean, shut up. I'm not awful. But you have been in that moment, right? That you can attest. What's so funny is that when you're early on in your relationship, the most absurd, even simple things that you would have done being young lovers, years down the road, you're like, heck no, tech no. Am I doing that right now? Like, and unfortunately, it goes from there to some people in this room may not even like the person they're sitting next to, let alone get up, put slippers on for Aaron, you forgot? Like, are you kidding me? Yet when I think about when I was dating Lizzie, I remember, I had told this earlier, the scariest night of my life was probably the night I rode back from school to Little Rock, where her family was at, and then rode the Greyhound overnight to Kansas City. Yikes. That was a trip. And one I'm not doing again. I promise you that for any of you, okay? But I did it because I loved her, right? And I'm telling you, there are people in this room that you would think through your relationship and what things you would have done in a heartbeat Today, to imagine doing the same thing, to be honest, it's incredibly difficult. And you just don't even care to offer that. What do you do when life isn't healthy? When you're not in the same place, and miscommunication may have started as small, has led you down a road that you are where you are today. So how do you fight for your marriage when the relationship is no longer easy? That's where we're headed today. Talking about some simple and basic habits and rhythms that I honestly think can make a difference in making or breaking your relationship, okay? But on a completely separate note, I do want to speak to something that I do not believe is the same thing as a marital struggle or it's conflict that needs to be addressed, and that is abuse. And I want to tell for some of you maybe in this room that silently right at this moment are in an abusive relationship, that I believe that God is with you. And I believe that God is for you. And this is different. There may be some of you in this room that need to believe and understand that it is not your fault. And you can't change this person, and that's not your job. And you need to think and ask yourself, is this a moment that I need to put myself outside of this relationship and put yourself in a healthy position? Okay? There is this leading social psychologist, he's a marriage counselor, that says this, I think is really appropriate. When all else fails, sometimes people have to get away from each other until the hurt can stop. And distance can provide time to protect, time to think, heal, and even learn some new things. In severe cases, protective separation prevents actual danger. And to be honest, there's a lot more that needs to be said and should be said. But the bottom line is you were never meant to suffer alone in a relationship because you felt it was the right thing to do, to stick it out. You need today or very soon, I pray for you to have the courage to talk to someone that you trust to get safe and to get the help you need. Okay? With that being said, there are many of you in this room that find yourself in the midst of a relationship that may not be abusive, but there is certain conflict every day, and it is a battle. And you are at a point of likely, maybe some of you, whether you're honest with your partner or not, but you feel it's desperation mode. I want to talk to you, and I want for you to have hope when you leave this place, but I also want you to be honest about some things that you may need to address. Because if you're in a place that reconciliation has to happen, then it's honestly going to take both of you. It ain't just his fault or her fault. So what do we do? And I think the thing that's been the most pivotal for my relationship with my wife is the very first thing that we'll talk about today, and that's healthy boundaries. It's creating healthy boundaries. And there's a book that if you have your phone out, which some of you do, okay, I know it, which is fine, use it. Be useful and write this down. There's a book called Boundaries in Marriage. And I don't care if you maybe are on your way to being married or you think you want to be married someday or right now you've been married 30 years. This is a book that could transform your relationship. And no doubt what I have to say today has certainly been impacted by that, and I hope you listen. But this could be a resource that could change your future. So give it a shot. It's this book called Boundaries in Marriage by a guy named Dr. Cloud, and Dr. John Townsend. And I just encourage you to write that down, find it on an app, go to Barnes & Noble, get that book, and give it a shot. What he talks about is the idea of boundaries. And what is a boundary? It's like a property line. He says it's simply a property line where you start the beginning and end of something. And what we know about property is that there's ownership. Once you know that this is this guy's land and that's this person's land, you have an idea. And the reason is that relationships are absolutely no different, that ownership is very important. If you know where a healthy boundary is, you know who owns the feelings, the behavior, your response as well. When Lizzie and I were in our darkest moment of relationship some years back, I remember sitting across from my counselor that I was working with and he was helping me. And he would say to me, Dane, you have been pushing the blame for a lot of things that are not hers to own. Those are yours. And I had for a long time been thinking, it's her fault. It's this area. And a lot of the things that we started to talk about is like, you need to own, you are the one as the leader of the family. And you need to own your responsibilities to the mess that we have found ourselves in. And I think if you're going to think about having reconciliation or healthy relationships, some of you need to understand there are boundaries you need to start setting for yourself, for each other, and taking responsibility for those things. For example, some areas of this, your feelings, your attitude, your values, they can't do those things for you. That is your responsibility. Your talents, your love, your choices. And this is what's really cool. Honestly, if you start to take ownership of the boundaries in your relationship and responsibility, what flows out of that is freedom. Freedom, a relationship and love that produces something that is so incredibly fruitful. Love was never meant to control, but to bring freedom. That is so incredibly powerful. There's this verse in chapter 5 of Galatians. He says that Christ, who is the dude, he says, for freedom's sake, I have come to set you free. The idea is that the love in your relationship should not be bringing more slavery or more control. You did not get married to become each other's boss. She doesn't need that, and he doesn't need it either. What you need, and I would imagine when you stood across from each other, was that they needed a partner. Someone who would say, I'm with you wherever you go, whatever dream you have, I'm supportive of you. I believe in you. Do you have that right now? When was the last time that you told them, I promise you I'm behind your back. I'm your biggest cheerleader. And if you want to survive, if you have hope for your relationship, you have to get back to the place of, I believe in this person. And I'm going to fight every day to understand where my responsibility begins and ends, and that they know that I and my love should bring them more freedom to be the person that God asks them to be, and not who I want them to be. That's tough pill to swallow, but it is reality that some of you need to address. The second thing that honestly comes out of this idea of healthy boundaries is time. And man, there are some intruders to our time. And I honestly think, when I'm thinking about boundaries, this might be the one for an American society that is just awful at our time and putting so much stupid crap in our time. This is one that we need to address. And some of you need to start today of how you address this time. For first, work, kids, hobbies, TV, your in-laws. I love that one. I was like, come on. I love supportive. They're babysitters too. They're great. So you got to make they're excited. Church can be one that can take time. Internet, your social media use, your friends, an addiction that you may have, even an affair that you may be hiding. This list, okay, not all of them are bad, right? Some of these kids, I absolutely love my children, but when the moment that these things, your work, your job, your friends, become more important, and it's more valuable for you to feel like I'm not offended. Well, they asked me to come, and it's more valuable to protect that relationship than saying no because your wife or your husband and investing time in that, then you know it's time to reevaluate. Because I promise you, this will end your relationship. Or you will find yourself waking up one morning, more roommates than lovers, and you will have to answer and ask yourself, when was it that I decided to make my work, our kids, this friendship or this job or whatever it may be, and you look over to the love of your life and you're at this loss of how did we get here? And that is a sobering moment. So you have to fight for time. This quote that I read has been staying with me. I told it to Jordan. He was like, whoa, I got to think about this for a second. It's a profound idea. It's simple, but it's strong. He says this: a marriage is only as strong as what it costs to protect it. You need to ask yourself, what investment am I making in the time that we have together? If you're not on a regular basis, then it is a problem, whether you realize it or not. So how are you fighting for more time with your spouse right now? If that isn't a priority, it needs to be, so be wise with the currency of your time. You don't get it back. The next thing is controlling your words. which honestly is super simple, and a lot could be said, but I don't think a ton has to be, right? I think you understand that words are powerful. I have a tattoo on my wrist. I'm going to try to do this really quick because I have to take my microphone away. Is that okay? So I do this, right? I tried to do it like this early the first service, and it became really stupid. But I have a dagger and a cross on my wrist. And I did it when I was becoming a youth pastor very early on, and I was trying to challenge my students and myself. The power of your words can bring life or death. There's a verse that it's kind of inspired by. It's Proverbs 18:21. It says that words kill or words give life. And you're either eating the poison or fruit, so you choose. And I think this principle can be taken, obviously, to any relationship that you have, but I think especially the person that you spend the most time with and the most cherished relationship. I was even in a business meeting this week, and the lady at the front says, hey, look, we know work's hard, but when we come home, it's easy just to be bleh, just vomit all over our family and be mean and rude because we're tired. It had nothing to do with a spiritual moment, but I just think how timely it is. When we come home, how are you choosing to bring life or death in your home? And if you're not choosing your words wisely, then it's going to have ramifications, right? For those of you that have short triggers and are reckless with your words, and you need to take responsibility. It's not their fault because they did this, Dane. You don't understand. I don't understand. But what I do get is that it's your responsibility how you respond. And you can choose like a dagger to respond back and keep that cycle going, or you can choose like the cross that signifies the most incredible moment in our history of human life and existence, that he chose to carry the burden of all of us. You can choose to respond back with love and understanding. And I promise you, you can end cycles. You're like, man, how did we get here? That begin to heal both of you. Here's a mantra that you might want to consider. It says this: choose to listen and to not speak first. Choose to seek to understand. I think that this is one area that I get really defensive in, and this is a weakness of mine because I feel like I quickly judge the way that sounded. Feels like an attack. It feels like you're saying something that's mean to me. You know what I mean? Have you ever had that moment? And you're like, But if you seek to understand, especially from someone that you love, that you want to win, the same team, you got to understand, look, it feels like that hurt. But here's the idea. I want to understand, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? And instead of making rash judgments, you have this ability to say, before I lash out and respond and have an attitude or have this behavior, I want to understand what's happening here. And then choose to validate and continue to encourage your spouse. We do not do that enough. You should leave here and first thank them for sticking it out with you, probably, right? But you need to be thanking and praising your spouse. Because I promise you, they don't hire it enough from you, from each other. It's so quick to point out the things that are negative. We must begin to create a culture in which we validate, encourage each other. But can we be really honest and say, like, we're all amateurs at this thing? I don't care how old you are in this room. We never did this before. That's not even an appropriate sentence, right? But this is real. Like, we're all amateurs at this thing called love. Healthy marriages, conflict doesn't go away. I think this is really important for some of you. You may look at social media posts which are so deceptive about where they go and how lovey-dovey their relationship is. But I would imagine if you were a fly on the wall and you were, Alexa in their house, you would be able to hear arguments and conflict that would surprise. I didn't know they fought like that. That's crazy. But what wouldn't surprise you? Knowing and hearing some of the things that you know what creates to fight, to have a healthy relationship. It's not that conflict goes away. It's that you know how to deal with it. You've got healthier habits and responsibilities that you take ownership over the fact, I failed you today. I am sorry. That's on me. I didn't think to ask you before I committed us to do this. I didn't think to ask you how this would impact next week or our relationship when I said those things. And I am sorry. Would you forgive me? But habits and understanding to have healthy boundaries and fighting to make time for each other. I, honest to God, don't believe it's rocket science. I just think it's really hard to create habits and discipline, especially when we've got some unhealthy ones we got to address, right? So is there a secret? Is there something in Song of Solomon that's like this secret, a silver bullet? I don't know if there's a silver bullet, but I do think there's a secret sauce, for real. I love sauce, ketchup, Chick-fil-A sauce. Come on, I'll ask for extra that I don't need so I can have it at home. Don't tell me you don't do that. But here's what I believe. I believe there's a secret sauce that I think if we can address and get understand, if we have these healthy habits and we start to make healthy time and decisions, I think that there's a secret sauce that can make or break your relationship. And it's found in the end of chapter 5. And it's Solomon's wife. Afterwards, Solomon is left, and she goes looking for him. And near the middle of the chapter, there comes a moment where some friends approach her, and they ask her, like, why do you love Solomon? What is it about him? And she's like confronted with this moment to be reminded of why she chose him, which is really cool. And it's something we probably should be doing on a regular basis, reminding ourselves of why we chose them first place, right? But at the end of this chapter, she ends it on something that I found really profound. His mouth is sweetness itself, and he is altogether lovely. This is my beloved. This is my friend, daughters of Jerusalem. I think it's incredibly significant that this refrain, this song, ends not in a sexual attraction that seems to be the pivotal point in my mind when I was growing up of what Song of Solomon was all about, but it's in friendship. You see, the Song of Songs repeatedly teaches that sexual intimacy is like this physical expression of love, but the building blocks of a healthy relationship are character and friendship. I started thinking about, I listened to an NPR podcast, it's been 2 or 3 months ago, and they started talking about how marriage has evolved throughout history. It's very fascinating, the expectation level we have for our spouses today that just weren't there 200, 300, 400 years ago. You know, the things that we think about, who you married, when you married, where you married, the things that were appropriate sexually and things that were not. Like, things have evolved. The expectation of what your spouse should be providing for you in emotional, social, economic, everything has evolved, right? Throughout history. And so what I found to be incredibly interesting and appropriate for a book written thousands of years ago, it was that what Song of Solomon was saying to be the secret sauce, I think I naively thought it would have once been like this steamy sex, right? Where she has breasts like the pomegranates and his hair like the flock of goats or whatever Craig said a couple weeks ago, right? These explicit descriptions that are themes throughout Song of Solomon. It has nothing, it's not that those aren't great, not that those aren't things that are natural expressions of an intimate relationship, but it had nothing to do with that. In a society that couldn't be more obsessed with sex as the symbol of love and happiness for a relationship. Like, if you have sex, good sex, then everything else will flow out of that. What a lie. It's not true. The steamiest book in the Bible, that's like almost explicit for like kids under 13, you shouldn't read it, right? This explicit book in the Bible argues that the sexiest thing you can do for your spouse is fight for honesty, fight for trust, fight for humility, have a forgiving and fun relationship with healthy boundaries that begins to produce freedom for each other. That is steamy. That's what this book is painting for us. And for those of you in this room that I'm telling you, maybe you're thinking, what if maybe we just need to commit to have healthier sex or more sex or whatever it may be. And I know we addressed some of that last week, but here's what I'm telling you. That is a natural expression of a relationship that is fighting for healthy boundaries, is fighting for time and saying no to things that need to be pushed aside and saying, this has got to get right. And I am sorry for areas I have failed you. And I know I've said and pushed blame on you, but today I'm taking ownership of things I need to take ownership of. And I want freedom. I know the thing that I told you shouldn't do, and maybe we shouldn't, maybe with money or whatever it may have been, but I believe in you. Let's chase that dream together. I don't know it is for your relationship. But for those of you that may have lost hope that still exists, I guarantee you it's there. But you're going to have to put the work in to get there. You're going to have to put a line in the sand and say, it starts today. And this is how we move forward. When I look at the healthiest relationships that I know, it's a common thread of trust and friendship. Isn't it? You're thinking of the relationships right now in your mind, and I guarantee that those are common threads. It is impossible, though, to talk about healthy relationships and reconciliation without understanding, and at the same time, at the end of the day, ultimately talk about what I believe is the one relationship that you long to have. I believe that your heart and that your soul is looking for ultimately your Creator. And that there's something about Him that's so special and so divine, and that the relationships that flow out of everything else come with understanding His friendship and His forgiveness that He offers. And I hope that you find that, because it's on the table. He cares about you. You see, a friendship with your spouse, I believe, can change your marriage, but I believe friendship with Christ can change your life. Give Him a chance. Let's pray. God, thank you for today. I'm just thankful for the opportunity. I hope for someone in this room maybe to believe and to have hope that it's not done, that even if it feels like it is, that there is hope still. That, God, they would begin to this morning examine their heart, take ownership over areas of their life where they have failed their partner, their spouse, and to have and face with humility this desire for forgiveness and reconciliation. But God, there has to be hope. It is twofold. It cannot just be, I'm going to address these things without having hope. God, would you just overwhelm every one of these couples in this room with the hope that maybe we can today make the decisions that can change the trajectory of our family. Would you overwhelm them with your love today? And coupled with the incredible conviction to have the perseverance and the work to make it happen. If there is couples in this room or a person in this room that you today know and you recognize, you feel like God's been speaking directly to you, that you know there are areas, there's time you need to be fighting for and boundaries you need to set and health that you want, and you're ready today to say, God, I'm ready to commit to fighting. I'm not giving up. I know it's going to take a lot of work and I can't control my spouse, but I'm going to start today to fight to do the things I can control and I can do to make this healthy. That's you. Would you raise your hand? Thank you, God. And I only just touched on it, but I do know that every week, the reason why we're here is simply because there is a God who cared enough to come. That it was important for Him to have friendship with you and I. That throughout the history of humanity, all of us have had this searching desire to know our Creator. And His name is Jesus. And He cares about you, and He has a hope and a future for your life. But you have to grasp it. You have to accept it. You have to understand His love and say, take my life. Forgive me of my faults and my sins. I want your salvation. I want for your forgiveness. And watch how that would change your life. If that's you, would you just raise your hand? Today is the day I want to draw near to God and I want to start a new life with Him. And as I close, I want to thank God for the opportunity for being here. And I want to pray over those that in this moment may find themselves in a domestic abuse situation. And I want to pray over you. God, I just ask that today you would heal marriages, that you would take care and you would start new habits and patterns that could change the course of the history of our families. But God, there are those in this room that find themselves silently fighting in an abusive relationship. And God, may I just pray that you would give them and bring them to safety. God, may you give them the courage to leave and talk to someone they trust, to know the next steps. And God, may they know that our church is a place of incredible resources to be and to come alongside them to know which direction and what to do with support and love, knowing that God has a plan for their life and he cares for them and sees them right where they're at. God, we just thank you for this morning. It's a heavy topic. It's real and it hurts. I just ask that you would be close to us, encourage us, and give us the understanding that there should be hope, but that you would give us the strength to know that we can make it, to put the work in, to bring us back to the love of our life, that you would create intimacy where it's been lost, and reconciliation, not only just back to you, but to those that we love, our family, our kids. God, may you finish a good work in our life. Amen.